Welcome to our Tuesday evening journaling social. We're going to get to tackle some of those journal pages if you haven't had a chance to do them, even though it's almost the end of October. That's okay. We are here to help you finish up those two, and I'm so happy to see everyone. Just to be clear, no cameras for any of you, no microphones for any of you. I can't really see you, and the only person that you're going to hear is me, so there's no microphone. So very low stakes, no worries, no worries. Hi, Andrea and Nicole. And I saw Rev is here. And who else did I see? Maggie's here, Courtney's here, Priscilla. Hopefully you've all picked out a car, your Halloween car from the Richard Scarry cars. I love Richard Scarry. So I thought this was a super cute little graphic for us to pick our little Halloween car. I think I like the vampire car the best because he's in a little clove of garlic, and I do love garlic. So with me tonight is the fabulous Maddie. She is going to be helping out in the chat. She's over on the East Coast, so it's late for her. I said, oh my goodness, Maddie, you're going to be up late. But she is here. She is going to help out in the chat. If you have any questions, if you need anything, she can help. I try to keep an eye on the chat if there's any questions or anything, but sometimes it gets to rolling kind of fast. So just so you know, let us know if there's anything you need. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Maya, and I am coming to you from Aurora, Colorado, where we just had our first hard freeze last night. I think it got down to 25, and it's going to get down to 25 again tonight. I think the high was 47 today. So fall is definitely approaching. And I was telling Maddie, it is not unusual here in Colorado to have snow on Halloween. So we always joke when you get your Halloween costume, it either has to be big enough to go over your winter coat, or you have to be okay with wearing your coat over your Halloween costume. So hopefully you are all staying warm, and or maybe you haven't got the winter weather yet. I don't know, but so glad to see you all here. Make sure, just couple little housekeeping tips, make sure that you set that chat to everyone. It has a really obnoxious tendency to flip back to host and panelist, and when that happens, the only people who can see what you write in the chat are myself and Maddie. So make sure that you that says everyone. And also, our community guidelines, we want to make sure that this is a safe and supportive space for all of our Sonder fam here. So we just ask that you're kind and courteous to both yourself and others. No promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy, no hate speech or bullying. We limit those repetitive product and accessory questions. It's fine to ask, about pins or stickers or those kinds of things. But honestly, the best place to ask about that is in Sonder Club, because then folks can give you can give you links and pictures and all of those kinds of things. And any of those customer care inquiries all need to go to our headquarters team with the email hello@silkandsonder.com. Maddie and I don't have access to your account, so we can't look anything up. We can't fix billing issues. We can't check shipping addresses, those kinds of things. So all of those go to hello@silkandsonder.com. Just know that they're a Monday, Friday, Pacific Coast time, 9 to 5. So sometimes it does take a little while for them to get back to you. And then ultimately, remember that these socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. And we have such a fabulous, supportive, wonderful community here. But ultimately, you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if there's ever anything that we're working on that just is not your jam, you're just not digging it, right? You're like, I don't want to work on this page. Don't, right? You can go to the coloring page. You can go to one of the other pages. You can just sit and doodle. You can do whatever you want. This is your hour to do what you need to do for yourself, right? And we are not going to be checking your journals. There's no grades. We're not going to come to your house and be the journal police and tell you didn't do something right, right? This really is your time for you to kind of dig in. And I will say, the two things that we're going to work on tonight, the two journal prompts in here, are going to be pretty deep, right? So it's the kind of thing where you might have to, as you're working on it, you might have to take a pause. You might have to take a breath. You might have to work on your coloring page or work on something else and then come back to it when that happens, right? When that feels better. So as you know, we have been working on resilience all month this month, and I think that it's been a really strong theme for a lot of folks. It's been tough for some folks, really kind of digging into what makes us resilient. because oftentimes when we think about resilience, we have to think about the challenges that we face and how those make us exhibit that resilience piece. So sometimes that can be a little tricky, right? So our agenda for tonight, we're going to have a fun little opening activity, and then we are going to do our resilience journal prompts on page 14. And then we are going to do our letter of gratitude on page 15. And the nice thing is these go really well together. So the work that we do with the journaling prompts are really going to set you up to write your letter of gratitude. So just kind of keep that in mind. So let's get started with our opening activity, and in honor of the kind of spooky season, right? And kind of thinking about fall and kind of what that is looking like. What I want you to do is to think of a smell that makes you feel like it's autumn or Halloween, right? You can kind of pick like it's a seasonal thing or this holiday of Halloween, or maybe even Thanksgiving or any of the holidays, right? Maybe it's pumpkin spice latte. Some folks are saying pumpkin pie, apples and cinnamon. Cinnamon's a big one, I think, that really makes me kind of think of fall. Maybe it's the crisp smell of fallen leaves. Definitely the leaves are outside and they're all crunchy and they smell really good, and it rained last night, so there's kind of that wet leaf smell, which is kind of that fall smell. So everybody's putting their smells in the chat. Things like apple pie, ooh, cinnamon pine cone from the grocery store. Lots of us like that pumpkin spice latte. Again, the apples, pumpkins, bonfire, and wood. Yes, absolutely. I always think of kind of fall when I can smell a bonfire. And I'm pretty excited this New Year's, my husband and I are going to be in Iceland for the New Year's, and we're doing a bonfire tour where they actually drive you around, because I guess it's a big New Year's Eve is kind of a big thing because it's kind of dark a lot most of the day in Iceland. So we're going to drive around and see the bonfires. So I can just imagine what that smells like. All right, so everybody's got their smells, kind of thinking of this smell. So what I want you to do is to just kind of close your eyes for a second. If you have something with you that has that smell, certainly smell it. If not, I want you to really kind of think about it. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to take a big, deep breath in, smelling that smell. We're going to let that out. Imagine that smell. And then what memories or feelings does that bring up for you? So just kind of thinking about when I smell apple cider, I remember these times, or I think of this, or it reminds me of that, right? So we're just going to spend a few moments writing in your journal. Maybe it's the scratch pad section, maybe it's a blank page, maybe you're writing on sticky notes about the feelings and memories you have related to that fall scent. So I will play a little bit of music. I will let you work on that. Feel free to keep sharing in the chat if you would like the smell that you're thinking of and those memories and feelings that come about, and then we'll check back in and keep moving on. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing in the chat those fall spooky season scents, those cues that really kind of tell us the season is changing. That things are kind of moving into a different time, and scent can really be something that can be really strong, can really bring up a lot of really good memories. And so I think it's always nice. I always like to kind of have some sort of a scent for each season to kind of cue me into, like, okay, we're going into summer. Okay, we're going into fall. We're going into winter. So thanks for spending a little time thinking about those fun cinnamon, pumpkin, bonfire, like all those fun smells. Hopefully you have some scented candles or something that kind of has that smell for you so you can get your little smell fix in. So let's dive into those journal prompts. So this one is going to be over on page 14. And you will notice that there are two boxes, and we are going to work on these separately. We're going to talk about the first box, give you some time to work on it, and then talk about the second box and give you some time to work on it. So just know that's how we're going to kind of divide up our time a little bit here. So this first question in this first box asks us, what strengths or qualities do you possess that have helped you persevere through challenges? We have all had our share of challenges, right? Some more than others. Sometimes they kind of pile on. Sometimes it feels like it's one after the other, but we've all had these challenges. But we are all here. We have all gotten through all those bad days and those challenges. And so, really want you to think about the strengths and qualities that you possess or that you have developed to help you get through those challenges. So, maybe think of some difficulties that you've overcome. They don't have to be epic difficulties. Sometimes the difficulty could be you spilled your coffee on your shirt on the way to work, kind of thing, right? But just they required some effort and some persistence and some maybe problem solving and really kind of getting through the challenges. So, for example, maybe you had a difficult class or a major project in school when you kind of think back to school days, or if you're still in school. I will say, Bridget, I noticed you were saying you were having a tough time with Eventbrite. Usually they changed something, so now you have to be signed into Zoom to be able to get in to the social. So make sure that you have a Zoom account and sign into your Zoom first before you pop in through Eventbrite, and hopefully that will make it a little bit easier. So we are on page 14. We are just working on that first top box. So we could also maybe think about some challenges, like maybe it's a tough job or a career transition, maybe a personal or a family health issue, a major disappointment or failure that you had to bounce back from. Maybe it's even something like learning a difficult skill or a hobby, maybe learning a new language or learning an instrument. Or maybe it's trying to get into a social that is being frustrating to get in, right? So think about those challenges, right? And then think about the strengths and qualities that you have that help you move forward, right? You didn't quit, right? Bridget, you're here. You didn't quit. Julie's saying she had a hard time, but she's here, right? So what are those strengths and qualities that you possess that helped you get through and helped you overcome those challenges, right? What did you do to keep moving forward? So think about your actions and your behavior, and that's the evidence of your strength and that quality. So I give you some examples here. Obviously, you don't have to use these, but I just wanted to give you some examples. So maybe something like I asked for help from a mentor or a friend, and that leads us to this idea, the strength or quality of humility and willingness to learn. Maybe it's I tried 3 different approaches when the first one failed, so we're being resourceful and we're being flexible, right? I kept a schedule and worked on it a little bit every day, even when I didn't want to, right? Getting through that, yeah, it showed discipline and consistency. Consistency is a big one that helps us get through those challenges, right? Maybe it's I reminded myself that the difficulty was temporary. So that optimism, positive self talk. Maybe I let myself cry for an hour and then I got back to work, right? So maybe it's showing some emotional intelligence and some resilience. So here's some examples. And when I go through these slides and then I'll play the music for you to work on it, I'll kind of cycle through the slides so that you can see them again. Also, keep in mind you can snap a picture or a screenshot. So that if you want to work on this later. I also found this kind of fun little, the 24 character strengths. So what's interesting is I was showing this to Maddie and I said, a lot of these actually are Silk and Sonder themes, interestingly enough, because I can see bravery on there and I can see kindness and honesty and creativity and curiosity and appreciation. So these are just some of the different character strengths that you might want to pick from as you're thinking of what strengths have helped you as you get through. Oops, went too far. All right, so I'm going to go through these slides, right? So again, you are thinking of that top box. Go back to the front slide. Oops, not that one. All right. So you're thinking of the strengths and the qualities that you possess or you have developed or you are working on developing that helps you persevere through challenges. So feel free to put some things into the chat. And yes, Melissa, I will go back through these so that you can see them. I'm going to play some music, so I'll be quiet so that you can work on this, and then we'll check back in. Okay, I love the chat, the conversations that are going on in there about these strengths, and kind of sometimes trying to figure out like, okay, well, what is like, I don't know if I would consider it a strength. I just like I put my head down and I just keep going, and it's like, yeah, that is that is a strength. That's that perseverance. That's that. Um, Sometimes it could be the I was trying to think. Oops, what's the other one of the other ones, the discipline, right? Sometimes I think we don't realize that we are very disciplined sometimes when we do that, like blinders on, moving forward. I'm just going to keep going. I've just got to get through this. I'm just going to keep moving. So thank you all so much for sharing in the chat kind of what kind of what you're thinking of these. And to be honest, a lot of times we do not give ourselves enough credit for the strengths and qualities that we possess. And so this is a great opportunity to really think about what those are and realize that you have emotional intelligence, you have resilience, you are optimistic, you are willing to learn, right? All of those things. So now let's go to that second box, that bottom box there on the page, on the bottom of page 14. And so now it's asking us, how have the lessons that we've learned from our past challenges influenced our perspective on handling future challenges, right? Because we know even if there are no challenges right this red hot second in our lives, there probably will be, right? We know life is kind of that series of ups and downs and challenges and smooth patches. And so we know that that is coming. So maybe you want to think of one of those past challenges that you were thinking of in the previous one, right? That allows you to showcase a meaningful lesson and a positive transformation. So, for example, if maybe there was some failure or a major setback that you got through, that's showing that resilience and your ability to learn from mistakes. Maybe it was a situation of uncertainty or high pressure. This demonstrates decision making under duress. Maybe it's a conflict or a communication breakdown that you had to get through that challenge, and that really highlights your interpersonal and emotional intelligence growth, right? Like for those of you who've been with me, you know that they eliminated my job where I had worked for 16 years back in April. And so at the end of June, I didn't have a job. And I think it would have been very easy for me to have been very down on myself and felt very bad and stressed out. But I was just kind of like, well, we're just gonna, we're gonna apply for jobs. I'm gonna do a resume. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And I think that was, I credit a lot of that to Silk and Sonder, because it was a lot of that knowing myself, knowing how to handle future challenges, knowing my strengths, those kinds of things. It's like, okay, I can work on that. And then I found another job pretty much right away. So I think that was like a super helpful, and it could have been bad, right? It could have been, I could have gone into like a very sad spiral of like, oh, this is so hard. I can't find a job and I'm older and it's hard for older folks to find a job. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do it because I'm smart. I've got these skills. I have a college degree. I have all this experience. And really just kind of using that strength to move forward. So maybe some lessons you've learned, things like the value of proactive communication. Yes, Monica, Dr. Maya's got it. Um, Maybe you learned the importance of data-driven decision-making over gut feelings. Maybe you learned the need to prioritize mental health and set boundaries. That's a big one for a lot of us, right? And maybe you learned that perfection is the enemy of progress, right? And I think that's one that we talk about a lot here in Silk and Sonder, right? We don't have to be perfect, right? We just have to do the work and be grateful for the wisdom that we gain from life's challenges. So I think, oops, yep, that's those. So I'm just going to kind of pop back and forth, whoops, through these two. I'll let you work on this, right? Again, we're here on this bottom one. So think about what lessons you have learned. What are some things that you've learned about yourself that maybe has allowed you to move on? And what are maybe even some things that you think you might have to put into play to help you with any sort of future challenges? So I'll let you work on that. Again, play a little music, and then we'll check back in, and then we'll write our letter. Oh, I just love everything in the chat that folks are writing about the things that they've learned. I've learned that it's okay to continue believing that there is some good in everyone, even though I've been hurt in the past. I've learned that I am so strong. I've learned it's okay to not be able to do things. You can be dependent on other people. You can ask other people for help, and that's okay, right? I have learned that being my authentic self brings me so much joy and peace. I've learned that it's okay to do what's best for you and not what other people think you should do. That is an excellent one. I love that, right? We can get so caught up in what we think we should do or what we think other people think we should be doing, right? Um, how about I've learned that not everything is going to matter 24 hours later. Marissa had a wedding last week. Congratulations. A week and a half ago. And she said that was a big example of that. And I agree. Sometimes I remember my wedding, which was a long time ago. But I remember how like you just get so wrapped up in things and then you realize like, oh, actually 24 hours afterward, like it doesn't matter. I've learned that no matter what happens, I can always count on myself. I won't let myself down. I have learned that it's okay to stop doing something that doesn't serve you and do something different. I learned that fear is nothing but a dream and a time thief. That lesson hit hard. I agree, right? Worry, right? Fear and worry are just time thieves, and so we're gonna let those go. And success and failure are not black and white. So thank you all so much for sharing in the chat. Like I said, the chat really is amazing, and it's so great to see the different things that folks share in there. And I love the lessons that we learn, and take those lessons and when we move forward, they can help us with those future challenges because we know there's going to be future challenges, right? That's just how life is. So now that you've got those two kind of filled out, those were a great warm up to write your letter of gratitude. So over on page 15, we are going to write a letter of gratitude to ourselves, right? Not to somebody else. We're going to write a letter of thanks to ourselves, thanking yourself for the resilience and the strength that you've showed during challenging times. Highlight the personal growth, right? A lot of you talked about the growth that you've done and positive changes that have emerged from these experiences. Now, I know from experience, a lot of times folks don't like to write nice letters to themselves. Sometimes it is tricky for us to be nice to ourselves, right? But we're going to make an attempt because, as this quote says, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. So, we're going to, and you can do this like in bullet points. You can write this out like as in prose. So here's some tips or here's some things to think about as you start to write this letter. Maybe you want to recall those specific victories, right? You've already kind of done a little jogging of your memory here on page 14. But instead of saying general things like thank you for being strong, maybe you want to reference that particular challenge that you overcame, right? So say thank you for finding the strength to carry on when you were overwhelmed with blank, right? You took it one day at a time and you did it. Maybe you want to acknowledge those tough times, right? You want to celebrate that you persevered even when things were difficult. Remind yourself that resilience is not about avoiding struggle, but about learning and growing from it. And that's something I think you've all been doing here in that last little exercise, right? So maybe you want to say something like, thank you for hanging in there despite the tough times. Thank you for getting up every time you stumbled. Maybe you want to celebrate your unique qualities, those strengths and qualities that you talked about earlier. Maybe you want to focus on those inherent traits that help you through challenges. Maybe this is something like patience and optimism. Maybe it's your sense of humor. So maybe you want to say something like, thank you for your ability to find a silver lining, even in frustrating situations. This has helped you navigate uncertainty. And maybe the most important one is to forgive your past self. Extend compassion to the version of you that didn't know what you know now. So, for example, maybe you want to say, forgive me for my self doubt. During that time, I was doing the best I could with what I knew. So spend some time. We've got plenty of time for you. Maybe if you're like me, I always like to kind of draft out my letter before I commit it to the journal. So maybe you've got some scratch paper or some sticky notes where you can kind of draft some of the things that you want to tell yourself and then transfer it in. Maybe you want this to be just some bullet points. You want to look back at those two boxes that you just filled in with all the different things, those strengths, those qualities, those lessons that you've learned, and give yourself some time now to thank yourself. right? We are going to thank ourselves. If saying nice things to yourself is still a little uncomfortable, I always suggest you could write it from the viewpoint of your pet. So it could be your cat telling you how strong you are. It could be your dog telling you how strong you are. It could be your bird, right? Whatever little pet you have, right? You could do, Priscilla says, "Oh no, that'll make me cry." And you know what? You might cry when you write this page, and that's okay, right? You should always know to bring some tissues to a social. But I think for some of us that still struggle a little bit saying nice things to ourselves, um, having it come through the eyes of our pet can be very helpful, or maybe from another loved one. Christy says you could also write it as your, whoops, the chat went go a little too fast, as your future self to your current or past self. You could also have it be from your little stuffed animal friends, right? Our little fluffy fellows that we have, any of those things, right? So I'm going to give you time to work on that. Feel free to share in the chat maybe kind of what you're thinking, or if you need some help, or if you want to just ignore the chat and work on your letter, you can do that. We have plenty of time to work on that. So I'll be quiet now and I will let you write your letter to yourself. I was having so much fun in the chat. I was forgetting to look at the time. I'm like, oh my goodness, our hour is up. Can you believe it? It always goes by so fast. And I am so glad that some of you are feeling like this was such a good exercise. I think it's such a good activity to just to tell yourself you did a good job, to show gratitude for yourself. I love it, love it, love it. And if you feel comfortable, love to see your posts there in Sonder Club. Oops, yep, in Sonder Club. You can share those pages, and we love to see kind of what you've written. I know, Nicole, it's always over way too fast, but hopefully you've had some got a good start on writing this. I think this would be a nice page to save if you spend some time and you have written this out, to take a picture and save it for yourself, even if you don't share, to look at later, to remind yourself that you're pretty awesome. And I love all our chat about writing in cursive and driving stick shifts and all the fun things that we do that probably confuse kids today, the kids today. So, just a real quick mention, we do still have the 24/7 personalized life coach going on. So, if I know a lot of you use Jenny, right, our little AI coach. So, love to see folks using that. And we've got lots more socials coming. I'm so glad, Corey, that you were able to join us tonight. So glad that everyone was able to be here. I hope you had a really good time really thinking of those strengths and those qualities and writing that letter of gratitude. And hopefully we will see you all again very soon. I will pop the link for my playlist into the chat, and Maddie will pop the link to the YouTube, so you can watch those if you would like, if you want to watch later. Why is my thing not showing that? So I will get that link to the playlist in there. Hopefully we will see you all again soon. So take care, everyone. Have a great evening.